frowned slightly, her maternal instincts offended by the Spartan conditions. "Oh, well, there's not much privacy, is there?" "No, ma'am," Gomer admitted, "but it is friendly. It was hard for me to get used to it at first, sharing a bedroom with so many other fellows. But now I just do not think I can sleep in a room by myself anymore." Aunt Bee sighed, resigning herself to the strange ways of military life. "Well, I guess people can get used to anything. Now, what duties do you have to do?" Gomer began listing them off on his fingers. "Well, I have got to mop the floor and dust the lockers and wash the windows and just generally spruce things up." Aunt Bee stared at him. "Gomer, that is housework." "Yes, ma'am." Gomer nodded earnestly. "I guess you could call it that." "You mean you do that all by yourself?" "No, ma'am. Usually the fellows do their own, but like I said, they are out on passes. And I did not have any other plans, so I am doing it for them." Aunt Bee was flabbergasted. "You mean the boys have to do their own housework, along with all the marching and drilling and things?" "Well, yes, ma'am," Gomer said, picking up a mop bucket. "It is all part of being a Marine." "Well, for land's sakes, how long has this been going on?" "About 200 years, I guess," Gomer replied innocently. Aunt Bee clicked her tongue in disapproval. "Well, you would think they would spend a few extra dollars and get you boys a maid." Gomer chuckled, finding the idea of a maid in the United States Marine Corps highly amusing. "Listen, you come over here and sit down on the bunk, and we can visit while I mop." Aunt Bee drew herself up, deeply offended by the very suggestion of sitting idle while someone else cleaned. "What? Certainly not. You think I am going to sit there and watch you do housework? I should say, not. I am going to help you." Gomer panicked slightly. "But, Aunt Bee, you cannot do that." "Gomer, do not argue." She commanded with a gentle but iron will that had kept the Taylor household running for years. "Get me a jacket or a sweater I can put over this dress, and something for my hair, if you can find it, and then give me a mop." "But, Aunt Bee—" "Gomer, do not argue. Just do as I say." Defeated by her maternal authority, Gomer fetched an oversized fatigue jacket and a cap. Aunt Bee slipped them on, looking entirely incongruous in the military gear, yet completely determined. She took the mop from his hands and set to work with a vigorous energy. "You really should not be doing this, Aunt Bee," Gomer fretted, wringing his hands. "You know, I just do not understand it." Aunt Bee muttered as she pushed the mop across the floor in efficient arcs. "Millions and millions in taxes. And they will not spend a few extra dollars and have a woman come in and straighten up. Mavis Pearl could come in here on a Thursday and for $8 do the whole place." "I really do not think it is the money, Aunt Bee," Gomer tried to explain. "Well, then what is it?" "Well, it is just part of being a Marine." Aunt Bee stopped and leaned on the mop handle, looking at him incredulously. "Doing housework is part of being a Marine?" "Well, that is the way they figure." "Well, they could make a few changes if you ask me," she declared, resuming her work. "Have a woman come in just once or twice a week, and you would see a big difference. Those windows could use some curtains. You know, your pictures would not hurt either." "Well, some of the fellows have pictures," Gomer offered, trying to offend his squad, "but they keep them on the insides of their locker." Aunt Bee raised an eyebrow knowingly. "Oh, those are not the kind of pictures I meant." She set the mop against the bunk bed and surveyed the room. "I better get back to my windows." She marched over to the large panes of glass at the end of the barracks. Gomer was already there, wiping them down with a rag. She inspected his work with a critical eye. "Gomer, I do not like to criticize, but you are not getting those windows as clean as you should. What are you using there?" Gomer held up a plain bottle. "Well, just the regular window cleaner that they give us." Aunt Bee shook her head. "Well, what you really need is vinegar." "Vinegar?" "With a little water. That is what I use," she explained with absolute domestic authority. "You would not happen to have any, would you?" "No, ma'am, but I suppose I could get some over at the mess hall." "Well, why do not you, Gomer? If you are doing it, you might just as well do it right." Gomer hesitated, feeling a growing knot of anxiety about leaving a civilian alone in the barracks, let alone one wearing military fatigues and cleaning the windows. Well, really, Aunt B, I do not think. Oh, get it, Gomer, she insisted gently but firmly. You will see, it will make all the difference in the world. Gomer sighed, knowing it was useless to resist. Yes, ma'am, I will be right back. As Gomer scurried away toward the mess hall, Aunt B hummed a cheerful tune, attacking the grime on the windows with renewed vigor. The barracks was peaceful. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door flew open. In strode Sergeant Carter, his posture rigid, his face set in a permanent expression of hardened authority. Following closely behind was Corporal Boyle. "Good afternoon," Carter barked into the seemingly empty room. "Lovely day, "Yeah," Boyle replied. Sergeant Carter took 2 steps into the barracks and stopped dead. His sharp eyes immediately locked onto the figure standing by the windows, wearing an oversized fatigue jacket and wiping the glass. He did not see a woman. He only saw an improperly dressed recruit leaving tracks on a freshly mopped floor. "Ooh, careful," Carter roared, his voice echoing off the walls. "You will track up my floor." Ampy turned around, startled. "Huh." Carter marched forward, his brow furrowing as he finally registered the delicate, older woman standing before him in the oversized military jacket. His brain struggled to process the sheer impossibility of the situation. "Who are you, madam?" Ampy smiled politely, entirely unfazed by his loud entrance. "Well, I am Miss Taylor. Who are you?" "Well, I am Sergeant Carter," he replied, his voice strained with rising bewilderment. He pointed a trembling finger at the mop bucket. "Would you answer me one question, please? What are you doing here?" "Well, I am mopping the floor." "You can see that." Carter closed his eyes for a brief second, praying for patience. "I do not mean that. I do not mean, what are you doing here? I mean, what are you doing here in these barracks?" "Oh, I am visiting," she said simply. "Visiting? With a mop?" "Well, I did not intend to mop," Amby clarified, taking a step toward him. "I am just helping out my friend, Private First Class Gomer-Pyle." Carter felt a familiar vein begin to throb in his temple at the mere mention of that name. "Do you know him?" "Oh, yeah." Carter crossed his arms, staring her down. "So you are a friend of Pyle's, huh?" "Yes, a very dear friend," Amby said warmly. Then she looked down at the floor and frowned. "Oh, but see, look. You should have wiped your feet. Look at the mark you have left all over the wet part. You know, I would love to have to do it once." Carter was sputtering, entirely out of his element. He was used to screaming at young men who trembled at his voice, not being scolded about muddy footprints by a polite Southern lady. "Madam, Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor." "What?" "Look, I do not want to seem rude or anything, but you will really have to leave." Ampy looked genuinely distressed. "Leave all this work for Gomer, I should say, no?" "Look, I am sorry, but according to regulations," Carter began, his voice rising in volume. Before he could finish, the door swung open again. Gomer hurried in, carrying a large bottle. "Aunt B, I got it." He stopped in his tracks, freezing as he saw the towering figure of his commanding officer. "Oh, hey, Sergeant Carter." Carter spun around, his eyes blazing with fury. "Oh, there you are, Pyle. Now, that is the way to come into a room." Gomer swallowed hard. "Yeah, well, I was just talking to this lady here. Pyle, the civilian lady that you brought into the barracks." "Well, then you met Aunt B. Gomer said, trying to find the silver lining." "That is good, because I have written a lot about you in my letters back home." Carter glared at him. "Pyle." Aunt B stepped forward, beaming. "Oh, so this is your Sergeant Carter. Oh, I did not realize that. You know, I pictured him a little taller." Carter stiffened, deeply insulted. "He is not tall, but he is solid." Gomer offered helpfully. "He is solid as rock, Aunt B." Carter took a deep breath, trying to maintain some semblance of military protocol. "Madam, Miss Taylor, I am afraid Private Pyle did not explain the rules of the base. But civilians are not allowed in the barracks, so I will have to ask you to leave.